I'll tell you what, we've got a pretty good crowd. I want to go ahead again in respect to everybody's time. If we get some others to drip in, that's great, and we'll let them join us in progress. What I thought we would do is first, real quick, go around the room and let everybody kind of do just a quick check-in of where they might be in the journey compared to where they were when we met live in Florida. So let's see, I'm looking at my list here. Kay, do you want to go ahead and kick us off? Just keep it short, please, for the sake of time, but kind of tell us where you are.
So I'm sure most people know my deal fell apart while we were in Florida. I've re-engaged with Alok and his team, and they've been really great about trying to get me deals. So I'm kind of restarting the process, just every morning going through and looking through, all the different websites trying to find deals. And we've got a couple right now, I think, that one that I just sent an IOI on today. And I think there's another one potentially that I may send in. So there's some positive traction.
Great. Well, Kelly, let's shift to you because you too had a deal that kind of fell through at the workshop. So how about your story?
So I learned a ton from that. Same thing. Re-engaged with the local team. They sent me 2 deals. I think it was Friday. One of them was it looked good, but it was a little far south for me, Florida. The other one is in the western area of Florida, which is not far from where I used to live. So I know that area well, and the business looks good. So I think we're doing an IOI on that. I had sent the approval back to Ali, had a little input from Hayden, and that's where we are right now.
Great. Alex, what's your story?
Yeah, so not a whole lot of updates for me. I actually just got an email from Veepal today so I'm still under LOI with my construction business, and we should be wrapping up Q of V by Monday, which is right on schedule for when Veepal has been saying we're expecting it. So beginning next week, we'll look to understand the working capital number and start getting alignment with the seller as to what that's going to look like, and negotiate that and any kind of other price adjustments based on the Q of E. We've been engaged with some attorneys just to look at purchasing doing the stock purchase, and that's kind of all I'm at right now. So far, no red flags coming out of the Q of E when I'm looking at the data room. So feeling, I would say, cautiously optimistic. I'm allowing myself to be a little excited about the deal, but still, there's a lot of pitfalls and a lot of ways for this still to go. Everybody's still, the seller, the broker, it seemed very easy to work with, continuing to build that relationship with the seller and the office manager. But yeah, I mean, it's all the rubber is gonna meet the road next week when we need to start nailing down the working capital number.
That's great. All right. Dean, how about you?
So I think I told everybody how the deal that I put on, it was I think I offered about 4.7, which was a 4.7 multiple, right around there, and it went for 7, something like that, around there. And so I kind of started. I still do on market search, but I've also started to go off market, where I literally just go to businesses during the day, in the morning, so the afternoon, and just kind of knock on the door and say, hey, pretty much I want to buy your business, or I want to learn a little bit more about your business, and this and that, and this is what I do. So I've been doing that, and I've been kind of, if they're not there, I leave them a little note. And I actually kind of want people's advice on something. I don't know if I should ask now or later.
Well, let's get around the room, and then we'll come back to questions and issues. Okay.
Sure.
Justin, how about your deal?
Yeah, I'm still pretty much in the same spot. So still under LOI, taking a while getting updated 2023 financials from the bookkeeper, who took a few weeks off. And so I've been holding people off on doing the QOE until we get the 2024 Q1. So kind of in the same spot. Hope to get it all this week, and then we can let people loose and try to figure out what we're going to do with this business.
Great. Okay. Patrick?
Yeah, so I actually backed out of the LOI that I was under just after more operational diligence. It was apparent I was going to have to travel probably 50-60% of the time. And just with my family, that wasn't something that I was willing to do. So I'm back on the search.
Okay. Let's see, who else do we have? Eddie, are you on mic?
Yeah.
We're-
How's it going?
There we go. Morning.
Morning. Yeah, I'm actively searching, looking for biz, buy, sell, like listing and contacting agents. I haven't heard back from Alejandro's team yet for any like deals, so I'm kind of wondering about that. But that's pretty much it for me.
Okay. Let's see. Going down the roster, I think we've pretty well covered everybody. If I'm missing a name, raise a hand or speak up. Let me know. But Dean, let's go ahead and start. If you've got a question, throw it out there for us.
Sure. So yeah, I still do my online search, but I also started like a little bit in off market and meeting brokers face to face and owners face to face. And I haven't used that particular thing, but I created a flyer that is I call it a Stone Hill Capital, and kind of like a company. And I don't know if I should approach sellers as a private equity group. That way it looks better and probably I want like the bigger businesses, the better businesses anyway. So I was thinking maybe that will kind of get more responses from the better businesses. Or should I make it more personal and just say, hey, my name is Dina Abrahami. This is my background. I used to work with my dad in a plumbing company, whatever. And, I just didn't know what would get more responses. Personal, real story of me, or just like I'm a private equity group and, this is my capital, Stone Hill, whatever.
Definitely personal. Yeah, 100% personal.
Oh, Hayden, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say you can lean a little bit on Acquira to get a little bit of both. But it's definitely the personal, and I would say like Acquira is sort of your diligence partner, or whatever you want to call it, your operational partner or something like that. If you talk to Sebastian, I don't know if he's on this call, but I know Sebastian did something similar. His story is a little less personal, and he kind of went the capital route, but he said Acquira was sort of his team. And so that way you can get a little bit of both. That's my advice.
Okay, and you think that because why?
Why? Well, first of all, private equity's got a really bad name amongst business owners. Everybody knows somebody who got screwed by private equity because private equity bought their company, and then all the customers were pissed off, their employees were pissed off. So it's a no-no. You don't want to use that. And also, generally speaking, like, these guys, they like handing their business to someone who's local. The fact that you've got the plumbing connection, I think people would like to kind of look at you as like, this is someone I could take under my wing.
Okay, amazing. That's the advice I needed. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have a question or concern that they'd like to explore with us? Oh my. Quiet group this morning, huh?
Well, I mean, I guess for me, everything's going to come down to what comes back in the Q of E. What's the recommended working capital number? What's the adjusted cash flow number? And I know like Hayden has been talking a lot about this in the AP calls of just, going back and renegotiating, and how that's a very sensitive thing because it's, it comes down to being a dollar for dollar transaction and kind of zero sum at that point. Just any other tips or tricks or anything you can speak to about just how to make this next step, which is going to be crucial, successful? I mean, I think we have to see the QE.
Yeah.
So my advice to you would be, you know, treat people like a partner and just ask, hey, what do you think I should do? And probably also make sure that you get another pair of eyes on it. I'm happy to look at it, or Doug, someone else in the team. I think it's just always good to have an extra pair of eyes.
For sure.
And yeah, typically I'm not gonna sweat something that doesn't have like a pretty meaningful, by meaningful I'd say like 50K plus effect on the purchase price. Maybe even 100K plus depending on how much you like the deal. And just note that there will always be things that adjust you up, almost always, as well as things that adjust you down, right?
Yeah.
So things like credit cards and reward points, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Veeple's final deliverable to you does a great job of flagging some areas that he deems concerning or at least worthy of touch point and review. And to Hayden's point, you'll have a much better checklist of things to consider when you get that final report. And, we all probably have an ability to look at basic financials and spotlight some things that might give us pause or we want to know more about. But that QOE package will give you some really specific red line areas to look at. So part of me says don't sweat it until you see the final report, unless you already know of a glaring number that's standing there in the financials. It doesn't make sense.
It's helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you both.
How's your relationship with the broker, and how is the broker's overall competency?
As far as every broker I've talked to over the past, year and a half, I would put him in the top 2. Like he's been really, really solid. He's obviously been pretty adamant about the escrow account, which I had said, that's going to be after Q of E. But I have talked to Aegis. I talked to Alex over at Aegis. They can do an escrow account. I've talked to somebody locally here that says they'll do it. Very vastly different in terms of pricing. So, trying to understand what's my value proposition that I'm getting from someone like Aegis versus, a kind of a one-man shop that's willing to do escrow and the stock purchase for substantially less amount of money. But yeah, other than that point, like the broker's been absolutely great and really easy to work with and very pleasant.
Okay,
so far.
So my other piece of advice would be if there are any material changes, bring them up with the broker first.
Okay.
On just like a one-on-one call with the broker and just say, hey, what do you think we should do about this? Because they can often, if they're on your side in this case, because they want to get a deal done,
right?
They can often give you some strategy on this, even though they're technically supposed to represent the seller. That's not always how it goes. They're representing the commission.
That's good. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I have a call with both of them tomorrow, just our weekly due diligence checklist. So I think I'll just prime them to say like, hey, they already know, like I'm expecting the 20th is when we're going to get the QOE report. So then I'll just say like, hey, in our next call on Thursday next week, we can start to work and narrow that down. And then if I need to get in front of the broker before that point, then we can certainly do that as well.
Yeah, and likewise, I would add, feel free to ping us in the Slack channel when you get to that point. If you see an issue that you're concerned about, perhaps even before you reach out to the broker. But I'll echo, I agree with Hayden, try to get it through the broker. You want to do everything you can to keep the rapport with the seller positive until the very last minute that you really have a point of contention you got to go over. But too many deals have fallen apart when the seller gets alarmed by what ends up being not so big a deal.
Yeah.
But then their doubt starts bubbling in their mind. They start rethinking their idea to sell. All of that gets out of control too fast sometimes.
Yeah, and I was even thinking of like inviting the seller out to dinner, whether that's before negotiating or once we kind of finalize that process and we do land on a working capital number in particular or any adjustments to the purchase price, just to kind of repair, if there's a little bit of sensitivity. that comes out of the negotiation. That it's like, hey, let's just grab dinner, let's and kind of work through those issues, and just because again, it's going to be transition is a crucial part in making sure that he's on board for that, and that he likes and trusts me and post transaction.
Any opportunity like that you have, whether it's before or after that moment, just the whole spirit of building a positive transition. And smart owners know there's something there, that it probably isn't perfect, and they're going to understand when you ask the question. So as long as you've built a good relationship, you can usually work through those things. I'm not going to say easily, but effectively.
Yeah.
And keep the transaction positive as much as possible.
That's the goal. Sounds good.
Anybody
I got
else?
a question on IOIs. Just looking for what you guys consider the preference. So do you do in the IOI, when you're stating your offer, do you do a price or a multiple of SDE? Because I had the one that I sent today. I got some supplemental financial data that I was able to look at, and I feel like we're going to be off on what the business is worth by quite a bit. So I didn't want to put the their listed price in the LOI, in the IOI, just to get past the broker to the seller. I wanted to at least just put a multiple of SDE. So I just, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, like, is that an effective way to do it, or do I want to stick to the price?
I'd phrased it as the price is X dollars based on a Y multiple of EBITDA as stated in the SIM.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Typically, again, because I think Kelly asked a similar question just on like working capital and meeting employees. Do you need to do that in the IOI? I don't think you need to do that in the IOI. The point of the IOI is to just let them sort of say, yeah, you can give me an LOI, and then you'll issue it in the LOI, right? And the IOI is often a step that a lot of brokers will skip anyway too. And it's more just like, here's a conversation with the broker to be like, hey, I want to put in this off thing.
Yeah, I think my broker's gatekeeping, so I thought an IOI might be a way to kind of break through.
Yep.
All right. Okay, that's good to know.
Anybody else have a question or something else they want to share?
Yeah, I have a question, Doug. So I'm kind of looking ahead, just given the amount of time that it's taken so far in this LOI to even start the QOE process, which we haven't done. I'm thinking way ahead of like, okay, there's a little bit of seasonality in this business. Come December 1, they're basically not doing a whole lot for 2 months. So we still got enough time, but I'm wondering, if things get delayed too much, is there any sort of strategy to approach the seller saying, like, we either got to close by this date, or, we're going to be getting closer to the slow time of the year, and we need to think about how that might make some adjustments to the purchase price or the structure of the contract or anything like that?
Yeah. Hayden, I know you probably have an opinion. I'll share mine first. I think it would be appropriate, but one way you might consider it, are you contemplating a seller note with the deal?
Yes.
I think you can pad and adjust and address that seasonality issue in that seller note, that some portion might be forgivable depending on the duration of that slow period, which ultimately burns your working capital, right? That's the issue.
Yep.
How large is the note, Justin, as a percentage of the deal?
15% right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you do that, you may switch it into 2 different notes. I mean, that tactically, but I think I agree with what Doug said. Like, strategically, that's how you frame it. Tactically, you'll probably have to switch it into 2 notes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Anybody else? Well, I've got two asks I'll share with the group. Well, one is more of just a sharing of information. Rich Coppage and I have been talking about the idea of as time marches on here, and you guys get ready, particularly those who may want to use an investor fund. It's important to be able to craft your own personal story, because one of the first things an outside investor is going to ask is, who is this person? Where do you come from? What do you do? And how do you do it? And in the modern world of technology, we are contemplating the idea of helping you guys put together an actual video pitch about who you are, not about the deal so much, but just who you are, so that parties can get a sense of the connection that might be there. And we believe that this is really, it may sound daunting to think about doing that, but I think, number one, it's good practice if you've got to stand up and make a pitch. And that even applies to the bank you might be dealing with, because they're going to be asking the same fundamental question: who is this potential borrower? And as you do your submission, if you have a video story, minute and a half, 2-minute kind of thing, you probably can run a much higher probability of a quicker acceptance answer than kind of imposing on the lender or the investor to try to dig at that and pull it out, because at the end of the day, they're going to want to know. And so being proactive and thinking about a story that you can tell about your background, your motivation, why you want to do this, why this business is the right one for you, that's kind of a framework that we're working on. So I'm not going to tell you that's a task tomorrow, but I'm going to give you a jump start and a lead on the idea, and kind of be thinking in your own mind how you would tell that story. And then if you're ready and want to dive in and take a run at it, I'm happy to help you. You can tell I do a little bit of production stuff on the side with a podcast, and I'm happy to work with you. And it's as easy as logging into a Zoom or a Google Meet and hit the record button, and then you on the back end might take a little bit of an editor to cut off junk in the front and junk in the back, but package the story. Does that make sense?
I like it. Let's do it.
On the narrative side, also, I think, Alex, I mentioned this to you. I don't know if you've spoken with Chris, but if like Acquire Capital is something that you wanna use, a lot of the narrative around Acquire Capital and the narrative that Chris has used with GPs is that these are the types of businesses that Acquire specializes in, and so ideally, the business needs to sort of match Acquira's sort of in the PPM said specialties or Chris's specialties. Chris has a bit of a manufacturing and infrastructure background, for him to kind of be able to defend it to LPs. So I think, Alex was looking at more of a similar to a GC construction deal, whereas a lot of our thesis is more around sort of the services and also subcontractors that can go into services. And my advice to him was to, package it more of, because actually what they did was they actually were like a plumbing subcontractor, if I'm remembering this correctly, but they had a few different like subcontractor businesses. And so I think as long as, from Chris's point of view, as long as the business, if it's a service business or has the potential to be a service business, it is, Acquire Capital friendly. If it's like a pure GC that does zero service, it's going to be less likely.
Yeah, and I did talk to Chris, so I appreciate that idea, and I took him through, the business, the three verticals. Obviously, hit the fiber optic cable part of the business. He was particularly intrigued about and gave me some questions and some some prompts to really think about for the different sets of businesses that this construction company does. But he did seem like it was a good opportunity and wants to touch base, post QOE, just once we can start working through the purchase agreement to figure out if this is truly the right fit for the equity fund. But yeah, it was, I think it was a good conversation that I had with Chris, just to say, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm about. I understand it's not just about the business, it's about the entrepreneur as well. So I had that intro conversation with Chris, and then yeah, we walked through the deal at high level, and he gave me some really good questions to go take to the seller and things that he'll be looking at in terms of an equity injection into this deal.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to talk to Chris, even if you don't think you want to use it, just because it's basically a free extra set of eyes at the deal.
Definitely.
To ask more questions. And Chris is a very smart person with a unique background. So yeah, 100%. Even if you don't want it, I'd say bring it to him just to get some free feedback.
Yeah, very good point. So the last thing I've got that I wanted this is an ask. Alex, you kind of went down the path, the broker. We would appreciate you guys letting us know when you meet and work with a broker that is particularly good at what he does, kind of seemingly a little bit unbiased to Hayden's earlier point. They're all chasing the commission, and you can appreciate that. But some are more graceful and seemingly more effective at helping really work the deal, as opposed to just pushing buttons somewhere. So if you have that experience, run into one of those guys that's really top of your list of experience, if you could drop their name and contact info in the Slack channel as well, I think that would be a great thing to do for us. And because what we would like to do, to the extent we are strategic in certain markets based on AE investor theses, we want to be equipped with broker names in those markets that are good guys to work with. Because at the end of the day, we're all searching for win-win opportunities, right? So any intel like that we can come up with would really help.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to share that information with everybody. He's actually based in Oklahoma. So, given that Noah had just recently purchased something in Oklahoma, there's obviously going to be some synergies there. So yeah, I mean, Andrew Popa is the guy's name, and I can share his information. And throughout this process, he's obviously been working with Allie. He knows about Acquirer from what I've been saying, and just trying to establish credibility with myself to say, like, hey, this is what I'm about, this is what Acquirer is about. So he does seem to be pretty receptive to that as well. So yeah, I think there's definitely some good, like I said, some good synergies to realize from continuing on a relationship with good brokers, because they are very few and far between.
Yeah. Kelly, you had a question? Or no, I'm sorry, that's Kay.
I don't think so.
I get my K names mixed up here. Just a minute. Kay, you had a question. Buyer profile websites recommended?
Yeah. No, I was just asking, similar to the video, right? Having some sort of video that kind of gives a profile or a background on the buyer. Do you recommend just putting out a website as well? I kind of skipped that because, it's sort of with the working with an accelerator, but like, do you think that's also something that could be useful?
My first reaction to that is that it's risky in terms of if you're trying to sustain a day job while you're doing your search. If too much of that goes public, just in your own defense, your current employer may have issue. They may see it and go, "What are you doing? Tell me about this." So that's the first thought that comes to my mind, purely in terms of your current employment situation. But if you're not worried about that, I think standing that up and working with it could make a lot of good sense. Hayden, do you have another opinion on that?
I think it's a good idea, whether you want to set up your own website. We actually, this is something we used to do, and we can still do it, but we have like a buyer profile section on the Acquirer site. And now it's not actually accessible to Doug's point. It's not actually freely accessible through the site, but you can send a link to people, which sort of has, a photo, your sort of like your resume and like a bit of a cover letter. And then it's
Right.
actually part of Acquira. So you can do that as well. I'll send you a link of one.
Okay, yeah, that'd be good. I did like a just a one pager in Canva, just a little background and almost like a resume, if you will, that I send from time to time. But I could just see a benefit to having a site too that I could just put the video on there,
Yeah.
and send it out.
I mean, anything you can do in terms of explaining or presenting what I would call your personal brand of who and what you are and why you're in the market and where you're going, that's what we're talking about. Because just like any other product, you want to become top of mind either for the brokers or the sellers to say, well, this is somebody I want to do business with. So anything you can do to package that story and make it shareable and available, I think is a positive for your effort.
Hey, Doug, going back to your request for brokers, I think I know two brokers that I would say are reasonable and appear to be of good character. I wouldn't say they're the most experienced or have been doing this for 20 years and the biggest broker in their market or anything like that. Would just reasonable good brokers be good? Or are you looking for someone to have a certain amount of volume or anything like that, or just people that seem fair?
What I would say for now, what we would like to identify, I'll kind of use Alex's indicators, kind of, top two out of everybody they've ever dealt with, that kind of thinking. I think we want to try to skim the cream right now is what I'm thinking. Okay. Any last thoughts or Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, just thinking about outside investors. And so, I mean, I take your point about us as the buyer profile and positioning ourselves well, but how do we, what should we be doing now to, I don't have any of those relationships, for example, what should we be doing now to plan for that or start to build those relationships? How to get started? What should we be thinking about?
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. Relationships with whom?
With investors, outside investors. Mm-hmm. If we're not using the Acquira funds, or in addition to the Acquira funds.
Well, I can tell you, Rich Coppage has a short list of other alternative investors that he's done work with over the years, and we are in process of trying to kind of more formally assemble those guys as alternate resources that can be out there. So for now, to your question, if you just want to reach out to Rich, he can probably share some ideas with you, and you guys could strategize on best way to do that.
Okay. Yeah, and what those terms look like. What's the offer to them,
They're all going to be different.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, so the offer, Kelly, is going to entirely depend on who you're basically asking for investment from. So we talked about this a little bit at the workshop, but I would say if you're asking friends and family, make it simple, and you're probably comparing to sort of beat the market by 2x for the additional risk and lack of liquidity. I'd see that as a basic. And so I talked about a simple sort of redeemable preferred structure. I like that. And again, hit me up if you want a little bit more notes on that. Happy to provide. If you're dealing with active investors, so either people who are probably interested in being passive investors from within the Acquira network, or people Rich put you in touch with, they're going to want they're going to be a little bit more aggressive on the economics because they're going to be looking at other sources of investment as their kind of IRR hurdle. So you're probably looking at wanting to offer them like a 20 to 25% IRR. And then how you structure that is, it varies a lot, but the simple example is in the Thinkific course on passive investment, which is basically the exact same structure as what the fund has, minus the preferred and the convert, right?
Okay.
Which is really where the fund is expensive.
Okay.
And Kelly,
Thank
one
you.
of the things this is Alok. One of the things you want to consider is based on the amount, if you can go to friends and family, it's a bit easier. If you get a family office, a professional investor, and let's say the amount you really needed was $100,000 or $150,000, whatever that is, you have to decide, do I want the complexity of someone like that on my case on a quarterly basis or whatever it is, asking me a lot of questions about the business while I'm trying to run it. So if it's a larger amount, maybe go to some of Rich's people, but if it's a smaller amount, if you can do it with friends and family, I think that's a better bet. Just it allows you to focus on running the business rather than managing investors.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
And all you'll need for that is a model, like share a data room that has sort of the narrative, the model, kind of your own sort of background and business plan, and then some kind of sort of growth plan for the business. That's it. And obviously the historicals within the data room, right? Yeah.
I'm buying into your. It's so much easier than it seems to raise capital. I'm like, is it okay? Teach me.
The hard part is raising capital if you don't have a deal. But if you have a deal and you have it under LOI, and it's a 3x-ish multiple deal, it's not hard to find capital because the returns are fantastic, right? Even without debt, the returns are still great.
I did have a question on top of that. Like, initially I'm planning on, investing by myself, but should I find a larger deal and I do want investors, like, should I create an LLC or an entity now, or is that pretty easy to do once you're under LOI? And are there any like SEC regulations on, things you need to do before asking people for money, or kind of how does that work?
Yeah, there are. Again, it's slightly different if it's friends and family versus if you're like actively shopping this around. Typically, you'll want this to be a 506B, so you can look that up. So it's Reg D, and then the exemption's 506B. And what that does is you can't market the deal like one-to-many, but you can talk about the deal one-to-one. You can raise an unlimited amount of money. It's quite cheap and easy to do. There's a bunch of resources out there that can do it for like $1,000 type of thing. And yeah, basically you'll have to issue like a PPM, right? Private placement memorandum. And with a Reg B, your LPs just self-accredit. So they need to be accredited investors. But basically they just need to tick a box to say, I'm an accredited investor. With a 506C, which allows you to raise money from and market the opportunity, right? Basically the GP, in your case, you actually need to accredit them, ask them for tax returns to prove that they're an accredited investor, which is, that lowers your conversion rate a lot. Yeah.
So once I have it under LOI, I can like pay an attorney to get the 506B and then go market it one-to-one to family offices, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't create the company until you've got something under LOI in this case.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Eddie, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, hi. So like I said earlier, like I'm still in the search phase and like trying to get some sims over. Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Just 1 second. You can skip. I'll come back to this one.
Sure.
All right, any others? Okay. Hayden, any other thoughts, maybe going back to topics that were done at the workshop that you wanted to cover a little deeper with these guys?
Not off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. Well, here's Eddie. He's back. Let's see.
Yeah.
Eddie, go ahead if you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have the house cleaner. So just a question about like deal flow. Basically, I'm wondering like to hear more about the deal flow in my area because I'm not sure like how busy it has been here in like San Francisco Bay Area. I've been looking on Biz Buy Sell. I see a lot of like stuff in Los Angeles and things like that. Like it's just like a major like difference between Bay Area and like Los Angeles. Like I don't want to be relocating at this point because like my search is like 1 to 2 hours away from here, ideally, because like of family situation and all of that. My MO has been currently like just like a wide search, any business, and like sending messages, like kind of like Chat GPT generated messages from the post with kind of infused with my background into like that, so it can be like more tailored towards the post. I've had like some success with that. I've heard like a little bit of replies back from agents, but not like 100% like success rate. So I'm just kind of like trying to hear back from the group about what like recommended like paths from here. It's just like a little bit like a black box and trying to like figure it out.
I mean, I would say maybe you should try. I don't know if Hayden, you've ever heard of people doing what I'm doing, but I think like I don't know. I like to go. It's hard at first, but maybe just go to like businesses that you like. Maybe look up on Google or buy licenses or whatever. Find like make a list and literally just go up there and say, "Hey, my name is whatever. My background is this. I'm actually looking to buy." I think I have a feeling it's going to work. I don't know. It worked with real estate. I've done it with real estate. It works. It's weird. You know, people would tell me, why would anybody sell from just a random person off the street? But it happens. And when you don't, and if they're not there, you leave a flyer of what you're looking to do and whatever. And I think that for you, someone who doesn't have a geographic, you can't go anywhere. I think that might make sense. I don't know. What do you think, Hayden?
Yeah, so if you're limited in geo and California, though a large population, just doesn't have that many on market deals. It's got like probably less than half of Florida, even though population is bigger. You're likely to want to do off market. I totally agree, and Alok talks about this a lot. If you're able to take advantage of the fact that you physically are there, you should. We do scrape large lists of businesses sort of within our thesis in every single city. And we can provide that list if it's something that you want to actually take and do personally. With us, what we do with that list is we'll either cold call it, or we have a different sort of way of cold calling the list, which is we put them into a new sort of mailing campaign around valuation, send the emails out, and then call the people that actually click the links in the email. So it's a little bit warmer. But yeah, if you wanna actively do that, we can certainly give you a list of businesses.
Yeah. Hey, Eddie, what we'll do is on the off-market side, we're actually mapping out a plan right now. And I know, and as Hayden mentioned, one of the challenges I think ends up being is there's just a lot more business brokers in Florida. And so we get a lot more deals. California, I'm just surprised with the limited amount of deal flow that comes in for California. So I think we're going to have to take a more of an active approach, especially because your region is so limited. So I'm actually working with the team right now to figure out an off-market strategy we can work with yourself, and then we've got some other people in California, what we can do to try and get a little bit more deal flow in those areas. It's going to require some effort from you also, but be patient. Give us a couple of weeks as we flush this out a little bit more and put some people in place to help on that side. But I will reach out to you at some point within the next 2 weeks and build some sort of an off-market strategy with you. Okay?
Yeah, that sounds good because like I'm thinking like off market is the way to go, and my understanding is like the acquirer has like some off market like sourcing. So I'm happy to like also put more time on my end because like I'm doing that like anyways. So like it will be probably more productive to like collaborate.
Well, and I want to throw in and remind everybody that, as part of your setup in our ClickUp domain, there is a folder for deal flow that is part of the automated scraping that Hayden described. Now, here's a caveat. I want everybody to understand this and hear me out. It's a dynamic market, and you most of you have had the experience. You see a deal, you try to jump on it, only to find it's already gone. There's already a third-party buyer and terms already agreed. So it is a dynamic, and we do not have a cleanup routine in the dump that we're putting in that deal flow in ClickUp. But you can, if you want to do the effort, you can go through, you yourself can eliminate deals from your folder. So if you see one and it doesn't meet your thesis, well, kill it. Just hit the delete button on that line item and take it out of your folder. It won't corrupt anybody else's data. It's your data. So you can do that, and that way you still see some flow as our scraping engine runs and tries to match up your thesis criteria. Does that make sense to everybody?
That's for on market.
Correct. On market. Yeah.
So the plan with off market is it's two main things. So one is we have PPC campaigns set up to mainly for both on Facebook and Google. So on Google, it's people who kind of Google sell my business, what's my business worth, business valuation, and then on Facebook, it's more just audience targeting. Which kind of comes in through a funnel that goes into Alok's team that then takes calls and with anyone over 3 million in revenue and kind of develops the deal, collects financials, etc. The other piece is sort of more classic: scrape a list, call the list, or like I mentioned, scrape a list, put it into an email list, email the list through an autoresponder, and then call the people who are active. So in that, what Alok's talking about is that, we're actively finding basically a BDR to do a lot of that for you. And I know Alok I think it's a great idea to involve you guys in it. So yeah, if there's an Accelerator Plus person who wants to actively be involved, I'd say like talk with Alok on setting up that strategy. But there is no shortage of businesses, right? And our team can contact a lot of them. It's just a matter of having a good strategy to have the highest conversion rate. I'm going to be doing a AP call probably in a couple weeks, just going over off market too, if anyone, just how we do it, if anyone wants to do it themselves too. Probably in the first week of June. And actually on that note, sorry, does that answer your question, Eddie?
Yeah, it does, and it gives a lot of more information about the whole process. I appreciate that.
Yeah, as a note, like here's what like a scrape looks like quickly. I don't know if you guys can see my screen. So like I was just loaded up like a California scrape we have. It's like 90,000 records or something. So we can contact all these businesses.
And where do you scrape them for? Where they have like also the emails and the numbers and everything?
We have basically there are different lists you can buy. What we were doing more of was a little bit more manual. So we had a Google scraper that scrapes based on geography and everything. And then we had people actually use things like BBB to figure out the owner's names, and then use like white pages to figure out phone numbers. So kind of just a large Filipino team. Zoom info and stuff can work, but it's really, I mean, last time I used it for this, it was really tailored more to corporate. And it's pricey. Your cost per record ended up probably being the same as us doing it like having like a pretty large manual component in the Philippines.
And
So the
obviously
way
manual-
Zoom Info,
less
Sorry?
Sorry, I'm saying probably manual is better because it's less competition on that way, probably.
100%, yeah. And obviously if they're ranking in Google somewhere, you know, they're real businesses. Yeah.
Okay.
One note, Doug. This Friday, Penelope is doing an AP call, going over a revamp of the training that will be probably launched by Monday. And so I highly recommend everyone here join that call or at least watch the recording afterwards. So we're updating overall the content, something like 600 or 700 pages of content. We're updating it. We're probably adding about, you know, another 100 or so, and reorganizing things a bit.
Yep. So when that rolls out, there no different login or anything. Your access to the Thinkific platform would be the same. You'll just see different content under the modules that you've formerly worked with. So be on the watch for that. There'll be more details. All right. Well, I think with that, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks, everybody, for jumping in. We will be back in touch for a future date to reconvene, keep you guys connected and keep it working. But again, feel free to use the Slack channel. Do keep up with your ClickUp info and always feel free to reach out to us if you've got a question. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
setting
guys.
this up. Good luck
Thank
to
you.
everybody out
Thanks for
there in
doing
the
this.
search.
Appreciate it.
Good
to see
seeing
y'all.
everyone again.